So think back to a presentation that you attended that was absolutely extraordinary. In fact, the one that we just got finished watching over lunch was an extraordinary presentation. So whether it was this one that we just got finished watching, or one that you attended personally, on a personal level or a professional level, think back to it and help me out. Tell me some of the things that were going on during that presentation that made it pleasant, that made it comfortable, and that made you enjoy that process and stay engaged during that presentation. What were some of those things going on?
Eye contact.
The presenter was making some eye contact. In the video we just saw, it was extraordinary eye contact to the entire audience. What else?
Relevant information.
Relevant information.
Smooth delivery.
Smooth delivery.
Made you laugh.
It made you laugh. A little bit of humor in there, right? Can you imagine sitting through a 30-minute presentation, an hour presentation, and no humor whatsoever? It's called a medical conference. Yes, sir?
I just say enthusiasm about the subject.
Enthusiasm about the subject. Even coming across the camera, it can be highly infectious and engaging whenever we see that. Anything else? What makes an extraordinary presentation?
Conviction.
Conviction.
Passion.
Passion.
You obviously practiced the newest subject matter. This morning I failed miserably.
Oh, goodness gracious. It's a little practice time, you know, a little preparation. All right. So we've all been into, or we've seen or witnessed or been a part of an exceptional presentation, and we know what that looks like. But how many of you have ever been to a presentation that didn't go all that well? In fact, you found yourself struggling just to stay awake long enough to hear what the guy or the lady had to say. How many of you have been there? All right, so talk to me. What are some of the things going on there that caused that to happen?
Monotone.
Yeah. Monotone.
That's the first thing.
First thing comes out, it's monotone, and you're just like, oh my gosh. And it was after lunch, right? So you're like...
Just reading off the PowerPoint.
Reading off the PowerPoint.
Word for word.
Word for word for word. I mean, they'll get there and they'll stand here and they'll stand on the side of the screen right here. And not only are they reading from the PowerPoint, but there's 50 lines on one screen. So what do? They come over here in a very monotone voice. They walk over here and say, thank you for being here today. My name's Dwayne Huff. For the next 3 hours, we're going to talk about the logistics of our company. I know you can't see this, so I will start at the top and read down. And you're thinking two things at this point. Oh my God, just hurry and get this thing done. Or if you just had lunch, you're thinking. So monotone, boring, reading from the slides. What else?
Unsure of himself.
Unsure of themselves?
Lack of confidence.
Lack of confidence, and you were saying?
Just not interested in what. Just not interested.
You're just not interested in what the guy or the lady is talking about.
It's not relevant.
It's not relevant information, someone had mentioned earlier. Anything else? Painful presentation. Hard to sit through. Didn't take anything away from it.
Sloppy appearance.
Sloppy appearance. Thank you very much. I tried, but yeah, so sloppy appearance. Not only sloppy appearance of the person, but sloppy appearance of what else? The slides. They're
Flip chart is so
I resent that.
all right. So some sloppiness going on for sure.
Comes on and I press start.
All right, good. So we've all been to exceptional presentations where it really pops and we take things away from it and it's relevant and we feel like we can take that information and do something with it. But we've also been on the other side of the coin where it's not a great presentation and some of the things you mentioned just derail it and stop it from happening. So today, in the 2.5 hours that we have today and the 2.5 hours we have tomorrow, let's talk about how to deliver an extraordinary presentation. Whether you're standing in front of one person delivering a presentation over lunch, or standing in front of a group of people delivering a lunch and learn, or have a captive audience of decision makers from across the board where you can present up to an hour. However it is, being able to do that systematically, methodically, but more importantly, authentically, to where you don't look scripted, you don't look like you practiced for hours, it's natural, it flows. In order to do that, let's focus on 3 things. But before that, I want to elaborate a little bit on what David said. My name's Dwayne Huff, owner of I.N.F.L.U.E.N.C.E Seminars, and here's my background. My background is in sales, over 20 years of sales now. But further back than that, and the reason that I found myself in sales was, when I was growing up, starting at 11 years old, I started to play the saxophone, identified with it, got transferred over here to Baton Rouge, Louisiana from Lake Charles, Louisiana, which is where I grew up. So the natural flow for me,
It's a great place.
isn't it great?
Oh, it's the
and it's booming. And it's booming. Is that where you're from?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Yeah, so Lake Charles, grew up there 13 years, got transplanted here, played the saxophone. It was a good fit. I'm starting to get toward the end of high school, have no idea what I want to do with the rest of my life. So what do? The logical thing. I major in music performance. But I was ambitious. Okay, when I went to college, I was ambitious because my dad was an engineer and he was pounding on me to get finished. So I was very ambitious, and I ended up cramming 4 years of college in a 6. Anybody else on that plan? All right. I only got a bachelor's degree too. So, all right. Yeah. So I ended up doing that, and then when I got out of college, I actually didn't even get a degree in music education. I got a degree in music performance. Now, does anybody know what you do with a degree in music performance?
Play music. You go on the street.
Move back home with mom and dad. That's what I did. That's what I did. I didn't want to teach, and I didn't want to move away, so there wasn't many opportunities for me. So I ended up, by default, moving into sales. Now, I didn't want to be there because my mom had made all kind of jokes and things about being a salesperson. So think about this for a second. I'm the only child of a mama's boy, and she's telling me that sales is not a good thing to be a part of. So that was a hard transition for me. But here's what happened. I ended up working for the Franklin Covey, or the Franklin Quest. I know you guys were talking about organization today in the Palm Pilots. I'm sorry, the cell phones. We were talking about Palm Pilots a little bit earlier, right? And all the organization that happens. Well, I started, analog with the binders and all that kind of stuff. And when that transition happened into Palm Pilots and then smartphones, that was a hard transition for me, even though I was kind of on the edge of that. So I ended up in sales, and I found out it was an absolute great fit because I love to talk to people and I love to listen to people. Okay, so I love to talk to people, but it was a good fit. I loved people, and it was very engaging. And I stumbled around for the first few years, but then I found myself, and I sold everything. I stumbled all over the place. I sold cell phones, back when they were still green screen and black writing. How many of you recall those days? Okay, that was the simpler days, right? But then that first Palm Pilot phone came out. Does anybody remember that first Palm Pilot phone?
Trios?
No, it wasn't the Trios, because they were about yay big, right? But that Palm Pilot was still green screen, black, right? You remember that one? Right? I think it was about that big. It had a little flip.
Remember the bag? What was that, like 89?
Yeah, the bag phone, right? But that little Palm Pilot, and you flip it down, you put it to your head, and you get a tumor. Or that was a bag phone, though, wasn't it? I ended up selling copiers. That didn't last very long. I didn't find a good fit in outside sales, but then I landed in a place that was the perfect fit for me. I ended up selling pharmaceuticals, legitimately. Just want to make sure. Okay, good. So sales was my background, and I fell in love with it, and I had a vision, a goal, and a dream to do something different with my life, but sales prepared me and gave me the strength and confidence and tons of time presenting, just like you guys get a chance to do with your customers, right? So 7 years ago, I made a transition from full-time job in pharmaceutical sales with a mortgage, benefits, house, kids, and everything, and I took a risk and I took a leap, started my own company, and for the last 7 years, I've been traveling across the country training people on how to deliver presentations. And here's what I found out. In my sales career, like I said, I got a lot of stage time, and it made me very effective and not scared of being in front of a group of people whenever I present, but I was all over the place. I was passionate, I was enthusiastic, but where was I going with this? Nobody could follow where I was going. And it wasn't until I learned to do what I'm going to share with you guys today on my background of sales that allowed me to be concise and really deliver a message that the customer would enjoy, appreciate, and be able to take away. So in order to do that, let's focus on 3 things in this next 2 days that we have together, or 5 hours total that we have together. Number 1, we're going to focus on the opening of your presentation, how you open that presentation. Number 2, we're going to focus on the body of the presentation, or how you develop and elaborate on the content, the information, and the data that you want to share with your customer, whatever that may be. And then the third thing that we're going to talk about is how do you wrap it up? How do you close in a way that your customer can take the information that you're going to give them and actually do something with it? What do you want them to know? What do you want them to do? What do you want them to believe? and what do you want them to think? And by the end of our short time together, you'll be able to take whatever information you want to share with your customer, no matter if it's face-to-face or in a large group of people, and deliver it in a way that they can use it and inspire them to take action. So here's what I've done, guys and ladies. Normally, I do this presentation skills class in a 2 or 1 day format. It's a lot of information and we could dive really deep, but we don't have that time. So I've stripped it of everything but the essentials that will make you effective the minute you walk out of here. Now, as we get finished with this, you'll have an awareness of it and you're going to get a little bit of opportunity to practice what we're talking about. But if you'll take this stuff and implement it piece by piece, slowly but surely over time, it will become very, very comfortable. And I'll just confess and say this: whenever I learned how to present in this fashion, remember, I had been presenting for years, right? And I had my own personal style and way of presenting. So learning something different and something new was painful for me. I wish I still had the videos of when I certified from the original company that I was working with to be able to do this. I wish I had those videos to share with you right now, because I'd look confident in 1 minute, I'd be standing here and I was all powerful and confident, and all of a sudden I'd forget my line or forget what I was going to say. I was like, damn it, oh! And I'd walk off camera. So I wish I could share that with you, but please understand, for me it was a little bit uncomfortable. So what I'm going to do as we do this is I'm going to share a little bit with you. We're going to talk through it, and I'm going to ask you to just verbalize it so that we can slowly incorporate this stuff into what you're already doing. Again, I'm not trying to script you. I don't want you to make you feel like a robot, and I don't want you to think that this is a new way that you have to totally embrace. I want you to take from it what is of value to you and use it to share with your customers. Fair enough? All right, cool. So let's go back to what we talked about, and we're going to focus on the great presentation, or the good presentation that you had in mind whenever we opened this session. And we're going to start to construct just the opening of your presentation. And if you'll open that handout that you have in front of you, this first page, you can follow along with me, is how we're going to map and lay this out. Again, we're just going to talk first, and probably for the most part of the time together today, just about the opening, because that's where kind of all the heavy lifting goes. Because the body and the close of the presentation, simple as pie. This first part is a little tricky, but I'm going to share the psychology behind it with you so you know why we do it in this format and what it does for your customer. Okay? So, the first thing we're going to talk about is that first H blank you have there is known as the hook. Anybody who's a music fan knows that the most catchy part of a tune, the part that you remember most, the part that you can sing along with, is it's the hook. It's the same thing with a presentation, and I want you to recall and think back, because overall what we're going to look at here, I told you we're going to talk about the opening, the body, and the close, but it goes back to that old adage you've probably heard about presenting. First, we're going to tell them what we're going to tell them, then we're going to tell them, and then we're going to tell them what we've told them, right? The first part of that is getting their attention, because think about it for a second. As much as your customers want to listen to you, as much as they value what you do and who you are, what's going on in their mind anytime they sit down for any type of presentation, whether that's a lunch and learn, whether that's a one-on-one lunch, or whether they're in a group of people? What else is going on in their mind besides wanting to listen to you? Everything they got to do, and what's in it for me? Am I going to sit here and listen to this, or am I immediately going to check out? Because you've seen those people, right? You know, if they're in a room of presentation and you start your presentation and they don't feel like it's relevant, as you guys said, or it applies to them, what are they doing? They're like, they just checked out, baby. They're checking email, they're on Facebook, they're getting up, they're hovering around the room. So the first thing we got to do is we got to grab their attention. So think back to those positive presentations, those good presentations you've been a part of, and tell me, what is some of the creative ways? What are some of the creative ways that you've seen people start their presentation or open their presentation?
Maybe a story with an analogy.
I like them all. Hold on one second. So you said story. I will also make this separate analogy, or they can be combined. I heard joke, right? What else?
Question.
A question. What else?
Most interesting fact, tease, like in a newsroom, like how the full commercial.
So something, yeah. So a fact, a statistic, something shocking or startling. Anybody else?
You tell them why they're there. What's the main, why am I here today?
Good transition, and that's exactly what we're going to do next. So these things that we're talking about, right? The story, the analogy, the joke, the statistic, the number. One of my mentors told me this. I'm like you guys. I'm only 20 years into my sales journey, and I have a mentor in this industry, the speaking industry, and he said something that just completely blew my mind. He said, when we talk numbers, we never want to talk our numbers first because our customers are scared of our numbers. Whose numbers are they not scared of? Theirs. And when we can get in a conversation or grab their attention with something we've learned, studied, uncovered, found in their whatever their information is online, and we know what their KPIs are or their numbers are or what they're aiming towards, and we're able to share that immediately, that draws them in because they're not scared of their numbers. They might be scared of our numbers if they're the first numbers that come up. But whenever you present, ask yourself, are there numbers that you can present of yours that would impress, shock, startle, or make them feel really good about the conversation you're about to share with them? Okay? So, if you haven't already, jot some of these down. Story, on your paper, story, analogy, numbers, jokes, questions, facts, statistics, shocking or startling statements. Does anybody else want to throw any other kind of creative hook that you remember somebody starting with?
Video clip of something.
A video clip. A game. Nice. Yes. So the point being here is, whatever creative way that you can start a presentation to engage, hook the audience, and interrupt their pattern, because they are thinking of other things that they have to do. They are thinking about other things on their plate, the urgencies in their life, and if you can really break that pattern, wake them up and draw them into you, now they're in. And at least they're thinking, okay, I'm listening. What do you have? And then we go to the next space, which you said earlier was?
I'm sorry.
That transition.
Jack. Why am I here today?
Why am I here today?
Of the talk.
What's the goal of the talk? Why am I here? And am I going to listen to you? Right? And that's where, I think you mentioned, that's where we're going to go and lay out the title of the presentation, or the main idea that you want to communicate. So that T that's on your page right there stands for title. All right, so before we move into the title portion, though, I just kind of want to throw it out there, and I heard you guys talking about duck hunting earlier. So let's have some fun with it, right? Let's take it out of work here for a second, and let's have some fun with it. Let's say we were going to sit down with a friend or a business associate and simply tell them a story about duck hunting, or share some fascinating things that you wanted them to understand about duck hunting. What would you use to open up that conversation in a way that hooks their attention related to duck hunting? Give me an example. And you can use any one of these: a hook, a question, a joke, a story, a statistic, a situation, whatever you want to do. Give me an example of what you would say.
Man, let me tell you what happened to me and Todd yesterday morning.
Keep going, keep going.
They had 5 ducks come in. He shot at one, I went to shoot at the other, and the barrel of my gun shot off and landed right in the water.
And so what am I thinking now? I know, but what's the question in my mind right now? Oh, what the heck just happened?
Listen.
Good. He's listening. He's engaged. He's wondering, okay, tell me more. What happened then, right?
Talking facts, I think.
Okay. That could be a story. That could be facts.
That is a fact.
That's perfect.
It is.
That's perfect. No, that's a perfect example. Now watch this. In the spirit of being authentic and genuine in your business presentations, some people may shy away from that story, but I would invite you, if that's who you are and that's kind of your personality, bring that in as a hook to start your presentation. So great example. Give him a hand. That was good. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, somebody else. Duck hunting. Give me a hook. And it can be a story, just like that one was, or it can be a statistic.
Game warden gave me a ticket.
Game warden gave me a ticket. Keep going with that.
Why did he give that?
Now watch, if you use that as a hook, perfect, good, absolutely wonderful. I'm not dismissing that, but elaborate for us just a little bit more. So you said this shocking thing, game warden gave me a ticket. Okay, you got my attention. Develop that a little bit. Develop that a little bit.
It wasn't my fault. They came to the camp and checked us.
All right, good.
They wouldn't check us, I wouldn't got the ticket. It's more than that.
So the game warden gave me a ticket. It wasn't my fault. They came to the camp and checked us.
Right.
Great hook. Great hook. Give me a hand. That was a good hook. Here's what I want to say. And both of these were perfect examples of what we're looking for. It's a story, or it's something shocking, or it's something that grabs your attention. But let me take it out of fishing here for a second. I'm sorry, hunting over here, and putting into fishing as an analogy here. How many of you fish? Okay, so if I take a little bitty hook and put a little bitty bait on that hook, what kind of fish am I going to catch? Little bitty, right? Right? But if I take a big old honking hook with a big old hunk of meat, what kind of fish am I likely to catch? At the end of the day, something bigger, right?
Yeah, an alligator.
An alligator. Or if you're in the Pontchartrain, maybe even a shark.
Yeah.
Or deep sea fishing, it depends, right?
Yeah, big grouper.
A big grouper? Right, so here's the point. When it comes to our hook, just remember, the more meat you put on the hook, the bigger fish you're going to catch. Or, especially those people with short attention spans in your audience, the better job you're going to have of grabbing their attention and keeping them long enough to engage them and bring them to the next thing you're talking about, which is your title of your presentation. Okay? We're going to circle back to this, but I just want to keep going just so you can see an overview of what we're talking about here. Because when we're finished here, I'm going to put it back in your court, and we're going to take this piece by piece and make it work in your business. Because I believe you guys had brought something to prepare to use in this presentation. So we're going to do that. So title. If my hook, for example, is the game warden gave me a ticket. It wasn't my fault. In fact, he came over to the camp to check on us. What would you call how would you name that presentation if you were delivering that in the form of a presentation? Okay. And as a result of not doing shit, what do you want us to know and understand? So today I want you to understand my innocence.
Would be a nice way to put it.
So at the end of the day, what I want to share with you today is I'm innocent. So here's how that looks, starting with the hook. The game warden gave me a ticket. Oh, it wasn't my fault. In fact, he came over to the camp to check us out. But here's what I want you to take away. I'm innocent. All of a sudden, I've just done a hook, and I've just done a title of my presentation. Now let's do it with yours, okay? So share with us that hook that you just did again, and land on what a title of that message would be if you were doing it in the form of a presentation.
So would you like me to repeat exactly what
Please, please do, because it was good.
All right, so let me tell you what happened to me and Todd yesterday morning. I had about 5 ducks come in, and Todd pulled up, I went to pull up, Todd shot, I shot, and the barrel of my gun flew off, went into the water.
So today I want you to know
that I was hunting without a functional gun. No, not really.
So think about it this way. The title is supposed to make me believe what you're about to tell me is relevant. So based on that hook you just gave me,
Broken gun. So be careful, gun.
You gotta buy good stuff.
You got to take care of your equipment.
either one of those, right? So today what I really want you to understand and what we're going to talk about is you got to buy good equipment. Right? So you tell me that hook like you just did, and you come in and you say, and so today what I really want you to understand is how to take care of your equipment. Sure. That could be the title of your message. All right? Somebody else, just for the sake of practice here and just the sake of verbalization, somebody else that hasn't jumped in here yet, throw me a hook about duck hunting. Just.
Well, I move on to fishing now. And maybe
Let's move on to fishing.
off a boat.
Jim's got a pretty good story.
No. I'll let Jim Kitchen finish.
You won't believe it.
This story is unbelievable. How do I start this?
Just jump in with whatever you feel is.
I took a swim in the Gulf.
Took a swim in the Gulf. Keep going.
It was an accident. I wish it hadn't happened.
Okay.
But, you know, you probably need to know what not to do to go fishing again.
Okay.
And diving again.
All right, so at the end of the day, the title of the message or the thrust of the message is, so what we're going to talk about today is what you need to know not to do when you go fishing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So take us through it again, because that was perfect. Just the hook of how you started, and then just land it right there. So today we're going to talk about...
I ended up taking a swim in the Gulf the other day. And what I really would like to explain is what we might not want to do when you go on a offshore trip.
Excellent. Good job. Give me a hand. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. So the hook grabs their attention, wakes them up, gets them to look up from their phone or whatever the case might be. And how you title the presentation needs to bring that element of relevance to your audience. Okay? So if they're duck hunters or if they're fishermen, being able to get their attention and then land it in a place where they see it as relevant is going to get their attention, make them put their phone down, or start to think about what you're saying versus what's going on in their mind. That's all we're trying to do. So the psychology is interrupt their pattern and then make it relevant to them. That's where we are in this part so far. Okay? Any questions so far? Cool. So we have the title. All right. Just want to make sure I'm giving you examples the way we need to. The C in there, because the psychology is, I hooked you, I got your attention, and now you believe it's relevant. So think about your most ADHD audience member, okay? The one who cannot pay attention for more than 2 minutes. You have to grab their attention and you have to make it relevant to them. And then think about the most engineer-like person in the room. The most analytical, the most thorough, the most questioning. If you just grab their attention and made the topic relevant to them, what are they now wanting to know?
Facts, numbers, the content.
They're wanting to know the facts and numbers and the content for sure. But before you give them that information, what do they want to know?
Your credentials.
Your credentials. Who in the heck are you to tell me about this? Is what they're thinking, whether they say it or not, especially the more analytical types. And those high type A personality types, they also want to know your credibility before they're going to invest their mindset and their time with you. So we have to give them some credentials. Now, let me ask you this. When most people present and open a presentation, again, going back to some of those not so exciting presentations, what's the normal standard for the way people get up in front of the room and start their presentation?
Credentials first.
Yeah, how do they do it?
I've been here 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, they'll stop up, hey, my name's Dwayne Huff, if you don't know me, right? My name's Dwayne Huff, and I've been delivering presentations for 7 years. It's so good to be here. And what's everybody in the room doing?
On their phones.
They're on their phones, and they're not looking up, are they? So you've grabbed their attention, you've told them it's relevant, now they're wondering, who are you? So your credentials need to be that only which is relevant to your presentation. So you can take the credibility off yourself and put it on SwageLock. You can take it and share your years of experience and how it's relevant to the project they're working on or whatever you're presenting to them, but make it relevant to the topic at hand. So credibility only as it is relevant. So let's assume just for a second, and I know that many times when you present, the person you're presenting to is going to know you. They've known you for years. You're not going to have to introduce yourself by name. But just for the sake of what we're doing here today, let's include this in case you find yourself in a room full of people, and most of them know you, but there might be a few people that walked in or showed up that didn't know you, just giving them that courtesy, right? So I'd say something like, my name's Dwayne Huff. I own a company called I.N.F.L.U.E.N.C.E Seminars, and we specialize in communication and leadership development. I've been doing this for 7 years, and I started out with a vision, a goal, and a dream to get better at presenting. And what I've learned over time is going to serve you and help you to take this information to your client, to your customer, and give them information that they can use and value. I just shared my credibility just as it was with how it's relevant to you. Okay? So somebody give me an example that hasn't spoke yet and just say, just for the sake of what we're doing here, say, my name is, and give me just a short bit of your credentials as you would to your customer. Somebody who hasn't spoke yet. Go for it.
Mike Fralick. I work for Capital Valve Fitting. I've been here for 8 years, working in the instrumentation world.
Red sweats.
And I look extremely well in red sweat.
Well, there you go. There you go. Perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for. Nothing more, nothing less. That's it right there. And remember, for the sake of what we're doing here, we're going to go through this time and time again because repetition is the mother of skill, right? And it's going to get it ingrained in our head. The more you hear each other do it, the more you're going to walk away. So just humor us for the sake of this process, and do introduce yourself and give credentials, because I know that you'll go back to many of your customers. You won't need to introduce yourself, but you might want to remind them of the credentials as it pertains to what you're trying to deliver to them. For example, if you're presenting a new idea, a new product, or getting them to look at a new idea or product, you might want to establish the credibility as it applies to that sector of the business. You might not want to give them the whole history of the company because they know it, but you might want to give them the credibility as it applies to that product or service. Does that make sense? Okay, I can't speak your language, so I'm going to try to nail it down where I can. Just correct me if I get wrong, okay? Ask me any questions that you need. So credibility is what we need to establish. Once we establish that credibility, and now they're thinking, okay, you got my attention. This is going to be relevant to me, so I'm listening. Who the heck are you? You got that out of the way, right? The next thing you want to do is transition into your ideas. So that next T that you see there, or that T you see there, stands for transition. Now I'm going to be honest with you and say this is going to feel a little unnatural when you verbalize it. But here's the psychology behind it. Think about it for a second. You hooked them. You gave them a title that's relevant to them, so they've decided in their mind they're going to listen. They want to know who you are, so you've established credibility. By the time you've taken that little detour to establish your credibility, even though it was relevant, they've forgotten what you just said, the title of your product, your message was. They've forgotten the context already, so you've got to transition them back into that. And the way you do that is you remind them of the context of the message. So you say something like, so that, or in order to. Not both of them, one or the other. So that, or in order to. Let me put that in context of what we heard already, okay? Going to the duck hunting example of the equipment needing to be taken care of. So that you make sure you don't drop your gun in the water, you need to make sure you invest in reliable equipment. So we need to focus on 3 things. I just transitioned and reminded him the context, which pointed back to that hook, right, that he told me. So that you don't find yourself with your gun in your water, it's imperative that you buy top-line equipment. So we really need to understand 3 things. And that I stands for ideas. This is where we're going to lay out those 3 things. Now you see 1, 2, and 3 there. It doesn't have to be 3 things. It can be 1 thing. It can be 2 things, or it can be 3 things. Don't make it greater than 3 things. But Dwayne, you don't understand. I do hour presentations to my customers. I got way more than 3 things to talk about. That's cool. Make it 3 main things and stack all relevant information underneath those major points. Does that make sense? But why 3?
Because people remember things in 3 and nothing really more.
Give me an example. It's hard to give an example when you're put on the spot, isn't it? I'm sorry.
Well,
oops.
Earlier you said opening, body, and closing.
Opening, body, and closing. Perfect example of 3, right? And I was illustrating how, matter of fact, the way I opened this presentation today is exactly what we're talking about right now, okay? But yeah, opening, body, and close. Give me some other examples of, in our world, in our life, as we've grown up, examples of 3.
Street lights, red, green, yellow.
Street lights, red, green, yellow.
Burger, fries, and a Coke.
Burger, fries, and a Coke. Say again? Stop, drop, and roll. My favorite dance move.
Wedding, sex, and a baby.
By the way, that camera in the back of the room is not on y'all. It's on me. There's an old saying, what happens in Vegas?
Wedding, honeymoon, and a baby.
Yeah. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, but when it comes to the camera, what happens in this room?
You're gonna put on the internet.
It's up on YouTube. That's correct. Right. So yeah, three examples. Give me another example of threes.
Jambalaya, crawfish pie, filet gumbo.
Okay. A Louisiana trio, right? Good. So the point being is people hold on to things in no more than three. And if you can pack your information into sets of three, what you've just done for your audience, your listener, your customer, is you've given it to them in the way that they can digest it, but not only digest it, when we close our presentation, be able to take it away and do something with it, whether that's take action, whether that's buy, whether that's spread the news, whether that's understand or think. You'll be able to do that as long as it's in threes. Okay? So here's what it looks like so far, going back to your story. Starts out with a hook, because I can't remember it as good as you did it.
So let me tell you what happened to me and Todd yesterday morning.
Okay?
We were in the duck blind, 5 ducks came in, Todd shot, I went to shoot, and the front of my barrel blew off and it fell in the water.
Great. So today I want you to understand.
So today I want you to understand that in the future you should clean your guns better and take better care of them, or that will happen.
Perfect. Your name and your credibility as it applies to hunting.
Matt Saunier, I've been hunting with my grandfather and father since I was 5 years old, and I've shot many ducks.
Beautiful. So that you don't find your gun in the water.
So that you don't find your gun in the water. Let me give you 3 main ideas. One, before you go hunting, check your equipment and make sure that it's assembled correctly. Before that, maybe the day before that, you want to clean it and make sure that it's working properly. And after the hunt, you put it in your gun bag, close it up, seal it up, and make sure it's safe.
All right, give him a hand. That was good. That's all we're doing. That's all we're doing. And remember, we're in the opening, and depending on how long your presentation is, the opening is going to be a little bit, it's going to be shorter. Basically, it's 10, 80, and 10. So your opening is 10%. The body of your presentation is 80%. The close of your presentation is 10%. So for the sake of what we're doing in this room for the next 4 hours that we're together, today and tomorrow, is we're going to make these presentations no longer than 6 minutes. 1 minute for the opening, 1 minute for the closing, 3 minutes for the body, because you have how many points? 3, which is basically a minute a point. Don't worry, we'll get there. Okay, but good job. Here's the only thing I'm going to invite you to do in the opening whenever you deliver your 3 points. Keep them concise and short. A word, a phrase, preferably not as long as a sentence. So for example, I said today we're going to focus on 3 things relevant to your presentation. Number 1, the opening. Number 2, the body. And number 3, the close. Now why did I not elaborate on those 3 points in my opening?
Because it was a tease.
Because it was a tease, and where am I going to elaborate? In the body, so it's coming. All I'm doing is kind of laying signposts in the ground so that my audience can understand where I'm going and stay with me. Because the people in your audience who are analytical, or the people in your audience who need the agenda, you've just delivered to them. Keep it in mind, when we have our audience, how many of you present to engineer types? Okay, everybody. How many of you present to executives and CEOs? Okay. How many of you present to supporting roles or staff or people who are behind the scenes? How many of you present to people who are sales oriented? Okay, that have sales roles, I'm sorry. Okay, so right there, and whenever we go into the second session in negotiations in December, and March, and then we go leadership in December, we're going to really unpack the different types of people that we're dealing with. But right now, just keep in mind that you have all of those people in your audience, and what I'm sharing with you right now is going to allow you to hit every single one of them and give them what they need so that you can meet them where they are. Fair enough? All right, so we just laid out the 3 ideas. So we're up to the I, and then we get to the final C, which is the call to action. Call to action. So we had the transition. We had the ideas. 1, 2, and 3. And then we have a call to action. All right. So the call to action. The call to action is this. What do you want them to know, do, think, or believe? What do you want them to know, do, think, or believe? So give me an example as you're presenting to a customer in whatever format. Give me an example of something that you want them to know, do, think, or believe when you're finished presenting.
The concept of the swedge-lock fitting is that all the action in the fitting is moving axially along the tubing instead of going around in a rotary motion. See, I can do that.
All right, good, good. Perfect example, perfect example.
I didn't think I could do that.
Excellent job. Give me a hand, that was great. That was perfect. Beautiful. Good job. Somebody else, give me another example of something you want them to know, do, believe, or think.
Leakage is a big factor.
Leakage is a big factor. At the end of this presentation, you will know that leakage is a big factor. Give me one more.
I want them to know that Capital Valve is an expert in training.
Great. At the end of this presentation, or at the end of our time together, you will know how and why Capital Valve is an expert in training. And notice, whenever we do this, use decisive language. You can, you will, you're able. Not, I hope, I think, you should. Because if I use that type of language, what are they thinking?
You're unsure.
Right? I've seen a tremendous presentations, somebody we both know. Tremendous presentations, just moving the room. And at the end of the presentation, you know, if you guys want to, and if you could, or maybe, oh my God, just destroy the whole thing. If you're going to do it, you know what I'm talking about too. So if you're going to put in the effort, the time, and the energy to deliver a presentation, make sure there's a strong call to action. It doesn't have to be a close. It could be. But it can be a call to action of what you want them to believe, to know, to do, to think. Yes, sir.
In keeping with his story.
Yes, sir.
Let's do a call to action for him.
See how he just threw you under the bus? I mean, I'm just picking. It's a joke. All right, so let's do it. You want to? Yeah. So what would your call to action be if you went through all the 3 points that you just said and the title of your message? If you were communicating that by the end of your presentation, what do you want us to think, to know, to do?
I want you to know, by me telling you this story, I want you to know that it's best practice to check your gun before you use it.
So it's okay to go back into one of the things you said earlier and use that as a call to action.
It is, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because when you do the call to action, there are some personalities when they present. I'll give you this analogy because I travel a lot. They circle the airport and never land their plane. They're trying to close out their presentation and they just ramble and on. And by the end of my presentation, you'll be able to, and if you could, and then you will, and how about, and everybody's like, just land the plane, man. Just land the plane. So your call to action needs to be a concise sentence. I wouldn't nail it down. And here's the thing, that old saying that we know as sales professionals, features, advantages, and benefits, I would tie it down to a benefit directly to the customer. By the end of this presentation, you'll know exactly how this is going to maximize the productivity, or maximize your productivity, or save you guys tons of money in the neighborhood of X. Really lay it down to something that is benefit-oriented to the customer, okay? Depending on the situation and the conversation that you're having, right? So good point. So yes, sir.
One of the things that I struggle with in the presentation I did first thing this morning is at the end of the Mr. Smith, there's no request for a purchase order. The most he says is, we would enjoy working on your applications with you. And I'm saying, give me your worst application. What is it? Let me help you solve that. And it doesn't really say that. He did a great job of convincing them that we've got the best
Well, at
product.
that point, then you just say that, after you've done it.
Yeah,
So what's your worst application?
Yeah, that's my point. It was kind of, it was brought up again on that NPO issue, that you're trying to get through the door, through the door, through the door. At some point, you just say, look, man, give me your worst shit, let me solve the problem.
Okay, David, so watch. So to answer your question, that's going to happen in the close when we finish out, and it's going to look like this, just so you know. Instead of saying, by the end of my presentation you will, you're going to say, so now you know, blah, 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 blah. So let me ask you, Mr. Customer, how do you see the value in this playing out for your organization? Or how does this add value to you? In other words, you've shared all this information and now you're putting it in his court, and as soon as he opens up and tells you, that's a natural transition, and to be able to say, well, go ahead and give me your most challenging situation. It's just a natural flow and how to make that discussion happen.
Probing question.
Yeah. But one that says, tell me what value you're perceiving based on this presentation.
Exactly.
Before you ask for the business.
Sure.
Does that help? By the way, I like acronyms, and I couldn't really make anything substantial out of this, so I came up with the way to pronounce this. It's HICTIC. HICTIC. Think about somebody out in the country with a watch. That joke didn't work. Okay,